I grew up loving Errol Flynn. The Slave Galley Rebellion and the Seahawk converted me immediately. He went up against Claude Rains and Basil Rathbone with the flippancy of Groucho Marx and the physical bravado which was completely different from the beefy heroes of my generation. So many years later, I was primed for 1993's Three Musketeers. This was a shameless throwback to the 1930s swashbucklers. The cast was clearly having the time of their lives.
God, I love my work.
And it came out at a time when its slick, formulaic style could scoot by on being exactly what it was, a fun romp. But it also might be a little something more. It's almost impossible not to have fun with the story of the Three Musketeers, as evidenced by the novel's 35-plus adaptations to film. In the story, three seasoned warriors take on a naive apprentice, and they try together to save the King of France, usually saving him from Cardinal Richelieu and his spy Milady de Winter, who held the title of most on-the-nose villain name for centuries until Cruella de Vil and Darth Sidious. What exactly the Musketeers have to do to save France varies from version to version. The original novel has a kind of dull plot about retrieving a diamond which the Queen gave to her lover, the English Duke of Buckingham. There is a long and suspenseful subplot where Milady slowly seduces her Puritan jail guard, and it works great on paper, but it contains zero swashbuckling. The 1993 version chucks the diamond story entirely and makes the quest object a secret treaty between Richelieu and Buckingham to assassinate the French king. I wouldn't show this in a French history class, but it does pare the story down to something much more cinematic. You could say this movie does not respect the source material, and you'd be right. Disney's Three Musketeers doesn't really give a hoot what the novel had to say, and also, unlike the venerated 1973 version, did not include a man dressed as a polar bear fighting the Cardinal's guards. Sometimes your appreciation for a film has more to do with when it arrived in your life. This is a perfect example of why I can't judge an adaptation based on its source material, but I try to judge it on its own merits. And on its own merits, the Three Musketeers' unapologetic cheese really works. Cliches get thrown around and they make no sense in context.
Rochefort. Isn't that a smelly kind of a cheese?
Thanks to our winged friends, every mercenary and bounty hunter in France will be waiting for them.
Every villain must say,
I want those musketeers, not excuses.
And that's just really bad management.
Don't let having only one eye impair your vision. The loss of the other could be most inconvenient.
Action set pieces are shoved in just for giggles.
Come, D'Artagnan! We're saving the king!
The intensely cheesy theme song is worked into the score so that we can never quite forget that Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, and Sting are just lurking there in the credits for us. But it works because the melody actually makes for a really rousing score. This was a sort of second-generation Brat Pack film, capitalizing on Kiefer Sutherland's popularity as a brooding bad boy in Lost Boys and Flatliners. Charlie Sheen plays, against type, a failed priest.
Why are you here?
Drugs. We must pray for our sins. Second thought, guy's often busy.
And Oliver Platt, who is criminally underrated, gets to ham it up as the indestructible dandy Porthos.
Ooh, a lively tune. I'm inspired to dance.
Their newfound apprentice, D'Artagnan, or as it is screamed by an almost unrecognizable Paul McGann, future Doctor Who, former PBS Jack Worthing, and star of the cult favorite film Withnail and I. Anyhow, D'Artagnan was played by Chris O'Donnell, who was a popular Hollywood dreamboat at the time. O'Donnell does mostly the same thing he does as Dick Grayson in the Batman movies. He's sincere, he's slightly nervous, he's reckless. But most importantly, D'Artagnan serves as our audience surrogate in this film, more so than in the novel or the earlier filmed versions as portrayed by Gene Kelly or Michael York. D'Artagnan is a fairly normal guy trying to figure out who he is. His relationship with the Three Musketeers
Oh, he's a feisty little fellow. Feisty indeed.
is weirdly not far off from The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's relationship with the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Cowardly Lion. As is made explicit in the tavern scene halfway through, each musketeer displays an aspect of who D'Artagnan can be: the brains, the heart, the nerve, and they help him meld those aspects into his final adult form. Gabrielle Anwar and Julie Delpy play the Queen and her lady-in-waiting. Indie darling Delpy actually looks pretty at home in this mainstream Hollywood fare. And Gabrielle Anwar, well, I'm really happy that she's had a long and interesting career since this film. But Tim Curry pretty much takes over the whole movie. He plays Cardinal Richelieu like Dr. Frankenfurter is dressed up as a priest for Halloween.
All for one. And more for me.
I see you shiver with anticipation.
In a film grounded in the charisma of a fantastic cast, he easily shoulders the load of all three musketeers anytime they are off screen. In 1993, mostly what we'd seen from Hollywood blockbusters was the likes of Jurassic Park and T2, which basically repeated 80s formulas but were wrapped up in much better special effects. Many big mainstream Hollywood blockbusters, think about Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Pretty Woman, could have been made for TV movies aside from their R ratings. Three Musketeers fits into that early 90s movie slump. The fires of the unconventional 1970s had smoldered into the fun-loving 1980s, and now they're starting to splutter. Director Stephen Herrick had proven himself to be reliable. He was a solid but not edgy director. Critters, his first film, was a goofy family horror flick like Gremlins. Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead and Mighty Ducks were both very entertaining, and they both made bank. And once you've made the Mighty Ducks, Disney will give you more money. So Herrick went on to direct The Three Musketeers, 101 Dalmatians, and Mr. Holland's Opus. Three Musketeers is in no way a groundbreaking film, but it flourishes thanks to exuberant acting and being unapologetically silly.
I told you I was famous.
The fact is, it's pretty hard to defend this movie, which I love so much. This movie is not so bad it's good. It's actually extremely good at doing what it's good at. Some of what it's doing is giving the cast room to shine.
Champagne?
We're in the middle of a chase, Porthos.
You're right. Coming red.
And some of it is throwbacks to Errol Flynn and Douglas Fairbanks. The finale, where the characters race into a Goonies-like dungeon and fight deformed torturers, is really absurd. Some of it is really just diving into a vault full of tropes and rolling around in it like it's Scrooge McDuck's money. I feel that way about several films. Three Musketeers is mostly indefensible, but in the words of the rock star St. Vincent, I can't turn off what turns me on.